Hi everyone, let's jump to the humor. So we will be talking with Tin, that is a Belarus-born, Georgia-based theater director and teacher, and his top interests included improvisation, participative theater, games, applied and social theater, horizontal process, and cultural management. And with Purna, which was my partner in this discussion. It's a Bangalore-based lawyer. She's also an amateur singer, a reader, loves cats, tennis, and learning languages. So I will perhaps start with Purna, as we had this discussion previously. And I would ask how we could locate from where and to whom laughs arrive in the body, because my body is full of emotions as well, because I think all this discussion touches very different way of feeling fear and feeling control. And I think humor always address different bodies and sometimes abstraction of certain identities. And we had also a talk about representation with Purna on theater, or like representing certain identities. And it comes a lot this question of power, like how we make laughs and who laughs out of it. Voila.
Thanks, Kettle. Thanks also to the others on the first two panels. Really enjoyed listening in. In the previous panel, I think in our breakout room, Mariam was talking about, when we discuss the question of political correctness, we should perhaps also look at who has the power and how they are using that power and for what. I think it's a great place to, start this conversation also, especially coming from the country where I come from. There is all our humor is more or less centered on sexual harassment, on sexual assault, on Islamophobia, on transphobia, and also, like I was telling Katon yesterday, that we have the caste system in India. So those of whom feature on the marginalized, or who feature on the margins of this caste system, they often become butts of jokes, And when I say this, it's not just humor in popular media or humor in movies and films and soap operas, etc., but it's also everyday humor that becomes very, very vitriolic, and it can get very, very mean towards certain communities. And it's also interesting that in our previous conversation, the question of hate speech and how the law sees this kind of behavior in public, that came up. And in India, it's interesting because we do have hate speech laws, but they're often tilted in favor of those who hold political, economic, and other kinds of social power. So even if there is a law in text, more often than not, somebody making fun of an upper caste or the majoritarian community in India is more likely to face legal heat and consequences than somebody, say, who's cracking an Islamophobic joke or who's going after a Dalit woman or so on and so forth. But so in many senses, I'm also saying that, to my mind, seeing how Indians generally enjoy humor, I'm not saying we don't have good humor at all, but I feel like the everyday humor definitely disproportionately, very unfairly, comes from a very deep sense of insensitivity towards those who are marginalized. And to that extent, I feel like this notion of political correctness helps in challenging status quo. Although yesterday, when I was having this chat with Kettle, we were telling each other how this is not really the goal. Being politically correct should not be the goal, because it doesn't really challenge somebody's belief system. You're just saying or not saying, doing or not doing something in front of others, in public, so on and so forth, to not face the heat. I will just end with one last point as to why I feel that this notion of political correctness, especially with respect to humor in India, is something that I will be okay with, because the absence of this political correctness can have very real consequences for the communities or the individuals in their everyday lives. For example, till today, despite the fact that we've had a vibrant LGBTQI movement in India, and that the Supreme Court has in more than one ruling affirmed the dignity of the community, etc., we still look at the community with a certain sense of a curiosity, which is not very positive, with a certain sense of ridicule, etc. And then when you portray people from the LGBT community, for example, as objects of ridicule in your everyday conversations or in popular media, etc., it becomes extremely difficult for the community to go on with their everyday lives with dignity and respect. And similarly, in India today, the Dalits and the Muslim community are living in extremely precarious conditions, and any kind of distasteful humor that you indulge in can add to the negative image that they have in the country, and they can have very serious consequences. And it's not just a question of the community not accepting you, it goes far, far beyond. It can even reach the levels of physical violence against these communities. So these words and these actions and all your gestures can mean very real things for the community. And so at least as a start, I would see whoever is doing humor, whoever is indulging in this kind of this kind of interaction, if they're able to censor themselves, although I'm not a big fan of censoring people, it's at least a good start, I would say. And the goal would definitely be more engagement and all that you say and do, etc., coming from a space of sensitivity, acceptance, etc. That's the goal. We're very far from there, but at least in order to keep the society from not exploding, I would feel like for now this is something I can just hold on to. Yeah.
Thank you. And Tim, would you be up to tell us a bit about your experience with humor and your background, your cultural background? How does this vibrate to you?
May I share it with you as a picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is point one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a couple of seconds to read it all. And this is point two. Please tell me when you're done reading.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is always like the context. I see some, like when I was reading this, I was laughing. When I see you now, you're doing maximums, because I guess why. Once is different context. Two is quite a hot topic, so it's hard to discuss it this way. It's still unusual, like not unusual. It's usual, but still not accepted publicly. But humor is a strong weapon, and to attack and to protect. And I think it's just a tool. So it's never bad itself. You can choose it to attack a minority or a group that lacks power and thus is heard by other people, as Purna just described us. That's how people can use it, or people can use it to protect themselves. These two things that I showed you, it's like one is about history coach. I don't know if I need to explain the meaning. Just tell me if it's unclear. Why is it funny? But thing is, it's so scary. Should I? Yes. Okay. About the history coach. So the war that is now happening in the territory of Ukraine is being explained for, like, it has by Russian government that it has real, like, deep reasons. And it's true. And these reasons are explained through history. And this history is being all twisted up. That's why this joke is about, like, okay, this is a history coach that will tell you the truth. Okay, the second one is about another part of this reality. There are many migrants from Ukraine that are trying to escape from war, and Russians who are trying to escape from Russia because there's crisis, because they don't want to go to war if they're men, because, and there is a strong horizontal movement of helping each other. There are many communities that appeared in like just horizontally in chats, in Facebook, in Telegram, and people gather resources, credits. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's a really strong movement to help each other. So this joke is about this. And actually, this topic hurts and it's horrible. But when you say the word horrible all the time, it's like you stop receiving the message. And many people, I was reading these researches that support for the Ukrainians trying to escape the Ukraine and keep safe, and for the Ukrainians who are there in Ukraine protecting the land, it reduced this help in a couple of months, because it's hard to stay in this informational field. You start protecting yourself, you just unfollow these resources, you stop reading it, you stop sending money, sometimes because you don't have more money. Yeah, and it's a reality for many people, but also because it's hard to live with it. And humor is a thing that may, first of all, protect to receive it, still be receiving these messages. Yeah, I want to know what's going on there, because it concerns me and my friends and partly my family. Yeah, I'm from Belarus, not straightly, but partly, because it's all connected. But I can't read it like literally about people being torn apart. I can't read it. It's hard. And when it's a joke, I still know what they mean, but I can hear it. I can see it. That's what I think. I'm trying to use it because where I work with children a lot at the moment. Same thing. If I want to discuss serious, hot, strong topics, I can't do it straightly. You know how many people were killed? Do you know what means killed? Showing pictures? No, not really. And then I can use it because there are still people, like, although some teachers think children are not people, they are. And they understand not everything. They may not know as many things as the grown-ups are, but they understand things. And they feel emotions and they need help. They need this information in a different form. So humor helps to reduce this pain and make this information more acceptable, more age appropriate. Sorry for keeping it too long. It appeared to be more involving.
It's fine. So we can perhaps say that some politically incorrectly humor located to certain positions of power can be used as a weapon of exactly. But it, yeah, from, so I can add it perhaps from my own context from Brazil. This topic or this notion of political correctness came not so long ago, but it came from a global majority, let's say, so racialized First Nation people that would actually discuss the global, the big media humor that was still based on jokes towards marginalized communities, and it's a super crossroads of things, because then, as had been said already, how we don't stop in the sense of correctness and neutrality and isolate from hard conversations and from topics that are actually way more embodied than just correcting language. But in another hand, when we change language and when we even when we learn a new idiom, we can already fill those gaps, and how we can balance or unbalance our own mistakes. And I think humor, for sure, like from the context of Brazil, it's been used as well as memes, like always as a weapon to also laugh upon absurd situations, and as well as you mentioned, Tim, to gain information with a certain filter, and allowing as well to learn to laugh out of the white middle class power and all of that. But it it served for us the sense of political correctness. It served for us in the very first arrival as a reduction of harm, I would say. And I don't know how this resonate also with you. And I think the big question now is how we go from reduction of harm from a society built on debt and irreparable debt to actually senses of care, and how we're going to cross that. This is the discussion, I think. I was thinking about this, how we get the knowledge. So this is not correctly, but then how we practice and how we incorporate that would be humor, maybe being a way to incorporate care, or the other way around, also to challenge the power of joking towards marginalized communities.
Was that to one of us, Ketul?
Sorry?
Was that to one of us, or?
Just open, yeah. I want to
Okay.
verb on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. A joke is a very serious thing, and as a person that practices with body, I think it's because laughing is a very embodied manifestation. So it's a manifestation of a feeling, and I think as was said also before, there is a very strong weapon, because when the body manifests something and we can look at it, who is laughing out of whom, we can have a very deep reading of a power system. So yeah. How would you think, Purna, perhaps that this sense of humor, between humor to be used towards the power, so how with the people that holds power in our capitalist society or white-based society, to indifference with humor to harm marginalized societies, like how we could make this difference?
I think Tim wanted to say something. Perhaps he can come in after I've responded to your question. I mean, I think one thing, because we constantly have different controversies in India about, popular humor and how it's punching down. So one way we can see the difference in what kind of humor somebody is using in whatever practice they're doing is they punch up as opposed to punching down. That is, they go after those in power, and they go after oppressive structures and power structures that are harming the society at large, rather than going after people who are already in vulnerable positions, who already don't have equal bargaining capacity in the society. And in India, oftentimes we have 9 out of 10 times the people who are punching up are the ones who land in trouble. They have court cases filed against them. They're fighting defamation, hate speech charges. Most of the times they even go to prison. But those who are actually punching down, they get let off very easily. They barely have any consequences to face. So one is, of course, the kind of what you do through your humor. Do you punch up or punch down? But also, if you're specifically in India, if you land in trouble, then you are questioning the powers that be. And if you face no legal consequences, then you're possibly, going after those who are already, precariously situated. I'm assuming I've responded to your question. If I haven't, please let me know. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
May I? Actually, I was going to say something that's really connected to what Purna said, because in Russian language, when you say laughing at someone, you use over. The literal translation of the pronoun is not at, like at, but over. You laugh over someone. And in Belarusian, you say laugh with. So it's like you're doing it together. In Russian language, it's like you're being over the object. At, I think it's close to with. Like we're laughing at someone, being close to this person. I don't know, it's kind of neutral. Yeah, it's a word game, but still, I think it's this. You can do it like together. And it's an interesting conversation that Guillaume started in the chat about irony, because yeah, I think it's a very hard thing, irony, because you can, it's a secret language. If you're one community, if you're friends, if the community, friends, family, it's getting, your irony can be stronger because you'll still understand it and others will not. But yes, if you put your irony outside of this narrow circle of your friends and family, you may have some trouble.
Yes, thank you. So in a way, it's again back to language, how we languaging things. Yes, I think the sense of correctness, what came up during this whole conversation as well, for me, was that we are already in a depth. We are already, so we live with that depth of incorrectness. So I don't know how, yeah, this expression, how much tied to the body it feels, and actually how different it resonates with every culture and every feeling of controlling, of fear, and of freedom, also of the understanding of freedom, that I think it's extremely different from all of us here today. And thank you so much for the sharing of this.
Kettle, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think Anesthesia had something to say.
Yes,
I think they raised their hand, but no.
Okay, I didn't. It wasn't. Of course. Is there some question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say about that thing that where somebody trying to make jokes on minorities. For me, it seems not like jokes, but like bullying. A couple years ago, I got into a strange hobby. I started fighting in Twitter with some alt-rights. And in these discussions, I just one time I just feel that I have experience that was like that in my life, and I try to remember where it was, and of course it was school years, and it was bowling in the classroom, and I think that you know, when you going into discussion with someone who tries to bully you, it's everything like, haha, you just don't understand this joke. I'm just joking. And it's always an instrument of power for me, because when you try to joke on majorities, then you become a weirdo. Well, that's what I want to say.
Yes. Thank you, Anastasia.